Trap Lil Rose. He said Brian still rips into detectives and Lil Durk's trial. Let's catch this Lil Durk update. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. I go by Obi Moolah. Make sure you guys have some fun with this. We're going crazy. Let's go.
Out here, okay, but I've got an update for you guys. I'm going to try and just do like more just short quick updates so I can give you guys everything that's been going on, because there's been a lot going on. Everything's going by so fast, there's so many updates, it's hard to keep track of. But basically we begun day 4 and I would say that there were W's for both sides today, okay? We saw some very, very interesting testimony from that lead detective who was on the stand at the end of yesterday. If you remember, the day the court proceedings ended yesterday, we had just seen the surveillance footage inside the convenience store where Quando Rondo and Lil Pab were getting snacks from at the gas station before the shooting went down. Now what's really crazy is that we saw that footage, we saw it timed up with multiple angles of the shooting, but then the detective came back and he dropped a couple bombs. He said he got phone records for everyone. They've got Jam's IG messages, that led to phone numbers, and they got phone numbers for everybody. Lindsay, Jam, Vonnie, Jones, Dee, Asa Houston, they got all the numbers, they got all the calls that they made to each other. It was bad. But one of the craziest things that came up was Vonnie's car. Vonnie's car is a big problem. So it was parked 2 blocks away when the murder went down, but we now found out that it may well have actually seen Quando Rondo just fly past in the Escalade after the shooting happened, after they fled the scene. So that's crazy. It sounded like Vonnie's car was lying in wait, waiting and looking out, seeing what happened, and then after that, he dipped out of there. Now, obviously,
yo, shout out to Trap Lil Rose breaking it down. I ain't even gonna lie, gang. He breaking it down like a kilo of coke. I like to see it. I like to see it. I gotta, yo, I'm about to upload myself like transparently. Don't worry, I'm about to do it right now.
So we know that he went to In-N-Out, and we saw some pretty messed up footage inside the In-N-Out of the 3 shooters and Dee, all inside the In-N-Out. This was extended footage. We already saw that they were apparently wearing the same shoes and the same pants as they were wearing at the shooting. But after that, what we saw was a very extended and long kind of sequence inside the In-N-Out burger where the guys were all kind of checking their phones. They were looking at their phones. They were kind of like having their arms around each other, showing each other stuff. Jam was on the phone for an extended period of time. I'm not gonna lie, it looked like some of the other guys were kind of looking at Jam like, yo, you really on the phone right now? But then everyone was kind of looking at their phones. People was, I don't know if they was texting, looking at the news, showing each other things. They didn't say this outright, but I think they were trying to infer that they might have been looking at the news as far as what happened to Quando Rondo, because not long after they showed that, they showed the TMZ footage that was captured at the scene of Pab being removed from the car and Quando screaming no. That same footage that you probably saw everywhere right after this incident happened. Now, we already saw the body cam footage of the first responder that actually took Pab out the car, but now we saw that TMZ footage. And in context of the guys all being on their phones in In-N-Out, that wasn't a great look. And I'll be honest with you, Durk had some really great moments, but he looked kind of frustrated when that news was being put across. I don't know what he was thinking, but it definitely was probably like quite frustrating for him to see these people that he allegedly has connections to all on their phones so soon after something like this happened. But again, that doesn't necessarily mean anything yet. They haven't proven that they were looking at the news, what they were doing with the phones, but obviously the fact that they was in the In-N-Out in the same shoes and the same pants as were on the surveillance footage and the ski mask of the shooting wasn't great. Now, what was really interesting is we kind of saw messages of Dee apparently having a back and forth with, I guess, some kind of like IG baddie who he was talking to. He was having conversations with a girl saying, I'm on my way to LA. She's saying, why didn't you bring me? And he said, I didn't know I was going to LA till 2 hours before the flight. Now, that doesn't necessarily prove anything, but it's just interesting to just see kind of more context and him basically saying, I flew out there. Now, that doesn't help when you're hearing these claims that, you know, they flew out with just the shirts on their back to commit this crime. But again, the feds are kind of building up a picture at this point. Obviously, apparently, the flights were booked by somebody that worked for Durk. Durk and his team, they made it very clear. Brian Steele said, ask the detective, does Durk even know what's going on with his bank account? Does he check his bank accounts? They didn't really have any proof that Durk knew what was going on with his Amex cards. They have all different kinds of people, but the flights were booked at the In-N-Out. Like, basically, apparently, as they were going into the In-N-Out, while they were outside the In-N-Out, all of their flights back to Chicago were booked right after this supposed successful hit. Now, we saw Jam on the phone a whole bunch. We saw everybody all looking at their phones. Lindsay hands a phone to Dee to show him something. They're all looking at their phones, all kind of talking. There's kind of moments where they sort of look like they're laughing, joking with each other a little bit. They seem like they're in a good mood, but they're also looking shifty. They're all in the In-N-Out, kind of looking over their shoulders, like looking out the window. it's definitely looking a little bit suspect and a little bit shifty. But basically, like, we're trying to just like build up a picture of what was actually going on immediately after that incident. So basically, after this, you know, they were going back and forth. Jam was showing his phone to other people. They were all looking at each other's phone. I feel like Durk was looking pretty pissed off. I noticed he was kind of doing this at certain points. He was kind of like looking a little bit, he was just looking a little bit frustrated with what he was seeing. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that he is cooked or anything like that necessarily, because he saw some good stuff. But when they brought up his Amex records to show the flights right after the in and out thing, I noticed he kind of grimaced. He was kind of like, he looked a little bit pissed, I'm not gonna lie to you. So after that, another bombshell that was really, really bad news was that apparently, okay, we'd sort of been hearing this rumor of Vonnie's car, the BMW M5, kind of going between locations, sitting at Durk's house before the incident, leaving the morning of the incident from Durk's house and being left there when they went to Miami. Well, what we heard, I thought that they were saying that the car went right back to Durk's house immediately after the hit, but apparently that's not what happened. A lot of people were asking a question about a black Escalade that was identical to Quando Rondo's turning up to the In-N-Out burger. Well, it turned out that when Vonnie left that spot, he went and parked the car somewhere in Hollywood and he left it there for a few days. But you know what he did after he parked the BMW M5? He got an Uber on his account right back to Durk's house. So that's not really a good look after all of this has gone down. You park off the car and go straight back to Durk's house. Now, in addition to that, Didi had messages where he apparently sent a viral clip to OTF members. Now, it kind of sounded a little bit like maybe Didi had sent this message. They showed the message that it was at in Quando Rondo. It said at Quando Rondo, where your pipe was at, gang, with 3 laughing emojis, 5 smoke emojis, a demon emoji, looked like a hurricane emoji, and some fire emojis along with the words risky. Now, they kind of made it sound like when the prosecution put this across that this was a message that that this was a message that Didi had put out there, or that Didi had added Quando Rondo in the comments. Well, that was kind of put across, and we heard a bunch of comments and responses from OTF members, apparently other members like Breezo, Lil Varney, TTE Wickedman, Boona. They were all in the comments basically in some kind of group thread where Didi had sent this message, and the unfortunate thing is we didn't find out until later that that was a clip from an Instagram account that showed the footage of Quando on the street screaming no, the TMZ footage that was shown in court. And Didi commented underneath that, said he playing crazy. Varney said he acting bad. While that was going on, Durk was kind of scratching his head. I don't know if he looked a bit irritated or confused or just thinking, what the hell is this? What is this evidence got anything to do with me? But obviously it was a lot to get thrown onto him. But his lawyer, Brian Steele, came to the rescue soon after. And we saw probably one of the biggest shows of power for Lil Durk in this trial so far. Brian Steele got up there, he begun his cross-examination against the detectives, and I'm not gonna lie, he was putting a little bit of belt to ass to some of those detectives. Brian Steele is showing why he's a multi-million-dollar lawyer, and he attacked the credibility of the witnesses very succinctly. He said, okay, detective, he said, you spoke to a bunch of the cooperators personally, right? You spoke to Jam, right? They said, yeah. Said you were present with 12 different interviews with Jam. The detective said, I don't even know how many times, but it was definitely many. They basically went on to say Jam was interviewed over 30 times. The detective said, possibly. They said Jam was in confinement, right? Don't they record meetings? They said Jam only had 3 recorded interviews out of over 30. So Brian Steele was putting in work, making Durk kind of look good and really trashing the credibility of these witnesses. Now, Jam hasn't taken the stand yet. There's a rumor that Jam might be taking the stand, or that Jam might be doing something at some point soon, but Brian Steele was killing it for Durk. He was actually doing an amazing job. They went on to say, oh, Keith Jones, you were present for 5 of his interviews, right? But why was only 1 of them recorded?
Oh, why was only 1 of them recorded?
The detective was like, possibly, and it was looking better and better for Durk. After that, they said, Vonnie was interviewed in your presence 10 times, detective, and they were never recorded while you were there. And he said, yeah, you have to admit it, yeah, that's true. And they said, do you know why meeting a cooperator would not be recorded? And the detective said, I can't explain it to you. I typically record interviews, but that's not how this case has been covered. They said, well, context is important. They said, you know, why didn't you do that? Why is that going on? There wasn't really an answer for that, and it was honestly a good look for Durk. Brian Steele was doing an incredible job of that. So they went back and forth, and then really we got kind of jammed up in a very, very long exchange with Didi's lawyer. Now, Didi's lawyer was essentially kind of rebutting this evidence that he had shared this at Quando Rondo, why you ain't have your pipe message. And Didi's lawyer, I would say he spent too long explaining this, but this is his point that he made, and it was a point that was beneficial It was a point that was beneficial to Durk, but I feel like he spoke about it so long that it ended up having negative evidence on screen in front of the jury for too long. He basically made it clear, he said Didi didn't type that message, he didn't write that message, he was resharing a post that was on another page. It was another random Instagram page. I've written it down, but it's not that important right now. But it was the footage of Quando Rondo screaming no on the street after what had happened to him and Lil Pab, and then that was followed by basically this comment, this caption that somebody else had made on their Insta post saying, Quando Rondo, why don't you have your pipe with you, and all those emojis. Now Didi shared that into the group chat, and obviously the guys responded. So the problem was Didi's lawyer was really straining the point, and I think at a certain point it was almost like, yeah, we get it, Didi didn't type that, but it's like you're inadvertently keeping this big post up of Didi basically bragging about the murder that he just allegedly lined up in front of the jury. I thought Brian Steele and Drew Findling looked very frustrated. I'm not going to lie, I could be wrong, but it looked like Brian Steele kind of turned around and shot daggers at Didi for a little bit, because it's kind of like, yo, we just did such a good job of attacking this detective and the witnesses and the lack of interviews, and you kind of showing this reposting of murder footage to make a point that's kind of not that important at this stage. So I do feel like that maybe caused some conflict between the different counsel and the different sides of the defense, but at the same time, Didi...
Shout out to Trap Lil Ross, man. He breaking it down like a kilo of coke, man. No bullshit.
Didi's point was understood. He didn't make that post, but at the end of the day, him posting the murder footage from somebody else's Instagram account with a comment that basically insults Quando, I'm not sure that was super helpful. And I feel like the defense for Durk would probably prefer that that was just ignored and we got to Jam and they let Brian Steele demolish Jam again. But anyway, that's everything that I'm going to tell you now. I'm going to come back and give you guys another update. I'm trying to do these short updates and get these to you as soon as possible. So I hope you found that useful. I will see you guys soon. I'm going to get back in the courtroom. Peace.
Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. I want to know in the comment section what you guys think. You know what I'm saying? It's looking good. It's looking good. Look at this. I got to get it like here. Make sure y'all hit that like button, comment, and subscribe for your boy.